Well, we're live.
There'll be some kind of a tax consequence, yeah.
Live,
Makes
folks.
sense.
Are you homeowner now?
I know.
No, I'm not. But eventually, probably.
You live in a
That was, everything
This is my
shifted to
parents.
that.
Okay.
Yep, we're live.
Energy. Living in a tiny house.
All right.
Okay.
Actually, not the house we live in. You build it out, styrofoam block. You pay $50 a month to heat. And so-
We good to go? All right, welcome board members and public to our June 25th Rec Center Advisory Board meeting. Ms. Myers, could you call the roll, please?
Yes, Leah Lexicos,
Here,
Carrie Boldman. Here. Sue Daugherty,
Here?
Elliot Dyer,
Here.
Rich Finneran,
Here.
Tondra Frisbee,
here,
Blake Harris,
Here.
Jerome Johnson, Drew Meredith,
Here.
John Orzak,
Here.
Dan Rambler, Darlene Walk, Jason Werling, Richard Kuntz.
Here.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Could I please get a motion to excuse board members Jerome Johnson, Dan Rambler, Jason Werling, Darlene, and, am I missing one? Nope, that's it.
so moved.
Second.
All right, discussion? Without objection, that motion is approved, and they are excused from today's meeting. Next up, advisory members, you have the minutes before you from our meeting held on, what was that, the 8th? 4th. Before you, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the minutes as written.
And a second? Do we have a second?
I second that.
All right. Without objection and hearing no objection, that motion is approved and the minutes from June 4th, 2024 are approved. Thank you. Let's see. Next up is we will open the floor to any public comment. If we do have any public comment, I please ask that you just state your name and address, please.
Sharon Johnson, 1139 Fifth Street. I've been watching your committee meetings, and it's going slow. It's frustrating to watch you struggle with this. There has to be a better way. There are other rec centers in the area, 3 or 4 of them in the immediate area. They've got this all patterned out for you already. All you have to do is tweak it. The pattern's already there, but you seem to be struggling on this. I do have some suggestions and some comments. On the membership cost, I went on Norwalk's website, and they've got a beautiful facility over there. I know they have a rich benefactor over there, but it's beautiful. They got everything. I want to talk about the membership. The memberships seem to be high, anywhere from $350 to $400 in some of these places. And I was wondering if maybe we could do a flexible membership. And what I mean by flexible is, let's just take a senior. Maybe the senior's not interested in the whole facility, but they just want to go out to do the track, okay? So maybe you could be flexible there and just charge something yearly for just the track. I know in Norwalk, I noticed on their website that they have between, I think, 11 to 1 or something, there's 2 hours around lunchtime, that they allow seniors to come in free to walk the track. So I saw that on there. The same thing with the gym. Maybe somebody's just interested in the gym. Maybe do a flexible membership on just the gym part that they want to attend. Now, I can understand doing a full membership on a family of 4 or something like that, because that family is going to use the whole facility. So I could understand that. Now, the floor plan, there was some talk about conference rooms and party rooms. This is not a social club here. This is a recreation, for recreation. It should stay for recreation. Conference and party rooms, you could rent the Mylander Pavilion down here or something like that. That conference and party rooms take up a lot of space that we could have real recreation things happening there. There was a question here, this lady here, Tandra?
I'm Tandra.
She had a question, and it was a good one. There's a question about whether or not the programs at Mills will be merged into the new facility. There shouldn't be any question about that. That should be merged into the new facility. We're paying, what, almost $14 million for a new facility? And we're going to have Mills divided out for programming there? Why would you do that? You'd want to house everything under one roof. You know, I looked at the issue 8 budget, and they have art down for $98,000 budgeted for art. And we talk about some of the poor kids in this community who might not be able to attend this facility, but yet we do $98,000 on art in our budget. That's a shame. That's an embarrassment. And when I looked over the study for the rec center, and I couldn't imagine why Cedar Point and Greater Sandusky Partnership had their hand in this. Why would they care about a rec center? But they said it's a development tool. I still didn't understand that until I read it, where it said a season passes might be given out for the Airbnbs. I think that should be last on the list there. I think the residents come first before you start doing something like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Are there any other residents and/or members of the public that would like to speak? Again, please, for the record, just state your name and address.
Justin Ketzel, 535 Meg Street. I was just curious, kind of to piggyback on what she said, what's the status on, you guys have talked a lot about what facility may have, but have you guys made any decisions yet as what programs, what's going to be in the new facility? I know that there's a pool at the high school. That sounds to be pretty concrete that that's going to be a part of the facility. Granted, it's at a separate location, but at this point, is there anything for certain that you guys have decided on? Is there any kind of update with all the discussions you guys have had up to this point? You guys have met, what, 5 times now, plus going to Fremont last week. Just kind of curious if you guys, if there's any update at all, you know, with everyone else that does get to watch this as well.
Any other public comment?
Hi, my name is Maggie Thurston, 906 Central Ave. I'm just wondering, Blake, you had posted that this potentially may be the last public meeting, is that correct?
Well, we have one more where we will then make recommendations.
Okay, so will the full panel be at that meeting? Because I know there's several people missing today.
That's the hope. but
So if people cannot attend that meeting, will there be another meeting that everybody can attend?
there's not one scheduled at this time.
So potentially, there will not be everybody here to make decisions and give their input.
It's possible.
Does that seem appropriate?
With all due respect, with what seems appropriate, I mean, please keep in mind that this is a volunteer position.
When you
And,
volunteer,
we all
you
do
usually
our-
make a commitment
We
to
do
ensure that you're here when you're making decisions.
Again, with all due respect, ma'am, everybody does their best to make sure that they can be here to attend these meetings.
Is that meeting next week?
July 2nd.
So July 2nd, right before the holiday, when people are taking vacations? Would that be correct?
July 2nd.
Okay. So I know the common statement is that the walking track was the number one thing on the list. When we all know that Sandusky contributed a significant amount of money to the Sports Force Center, where there is a walking track where people can walk for free. And duplicating that service that's already in this community that's very accessible seems like a waste of money. I would like to see some kind of ideas on what this water feature is that's going to be at the rec center, because that could be as basic at the one at Lions Park, or it could be as extravagant, for lack of for what's really needed for the community, is what the community wants, as a place for families to go with multiple seating areas, multiple options for different age kids to spend a day and enjoy an outdoor water activity. And both of those options that we have permanently here in Sandusky do not really meet the needs of what the community is. And again, as a parent of a child that participates in the rec program, the idea that the rec program for the kids would be at a different facility, an inadequate facility, is really not appropriate. And to really look at those kids and where that should be, the location, all the fancy little program that we did over at Mill School that you guys had the public come and look at, with the pictures, had that location as the selling point. You guys came in there asking for money with that specific location and accessibility from the schools at that location on Hayes Ave. And to change it after you get the money for programming is very much feels like a bait and switch if the programs at the rec center are not at the new rec center. I just really think it's important to look at the kids and look at our future kids, and what they needs and what families needs versus the people that have the highest economic income in the city and looking at a walking track. Again, I've looked at, my daughter's involved in a lot of programs, and looking at what rates are for programs. A lot of rec centers and other places like the Erie Metro Parks have as a mixture of free programs, low-cost programs, as well as some of them have resident and non-resident programs, and that non-residents pay a slightly higher price tag for those programs. And there's a way to make it work where some of those costs are put onto non-residents, as well as, income-based cost, where the individuals that make more money pay a higher rate to subsidize the families and the individuals that make less money.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
My name's Talib Garrett. I live at 512 Scott Street. And I was coming up here to let you guys know about the rec program. I got a daughter that's 15 that know how to sew, all because of the rec program. And she sewed my 2-year-old favorite blanket that carried around like a Snoopy character. I can't take it away from her. And my dad, he liked to rip, he got Pat's pants, and he loved that. His granddaughter made those pants for him off the rec program. And then I got a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old that goes there sometimes. And the 10-year-old said her favorite thing to do is hang with her cousins. And back when I grew up, it was like 20 of us at Mom and Nanny house. So it was a little different from now, because now it don't be a lot of cousins at grandma houses no more. So I thought that was very important. And my 8-year-old said like being with his friends. I just come over here just to let you guys know how it affects my family. And I'll give you some good points, because last time I was here, I was like a little irritated by the 82 pays, so some of the stuff didn't make sense to me. But I'm gonna give out something positive. That's all.
Appreciate it, Mr. Garrett. Any others? Please step up.
Hi.
Hi there.
Tricia Ruffin. I work in worship in Sandusky City Schools. I went out to Sandusky Rec twice. Yes, today was one of the days. And in the absence of possible staff or whatever, because I just stayed in the main foyer there, and I literally watched kids stop and tell where they wanted to go. The walkie-talkie went up. And then the walkie-talkie, somebody else spoke. And I was like, oh my God, this is like a well-oiled machine. There was a little girl that came in for her brother, and she didn't wander. She stood. She didn't say, hurry up. She didn't say, oh, would she come on? She stood there. And I was like, okay, so home training says one thing. We know that what we teach our kids at home, but they don't always act like that in public. But I witnessed today staff members that did not have to repeat statements. And for me, it was refreshing. I had no idea, because I work during the same hours that it's happening. So I took my lunch break and went over. And it was just, I was just amazed, because I even wanted to say something like, boy, all these kids, you know? And it was just such a well-oiled machine. And I believe that there are manners being taught, and life skills, and kindness, and things that possibly maybe a regular classroom setting or whatever, or other ways that you work a rec room, you might not have witnessed that character, those pillars that we build our foundation on through Sandusky City Schools. But I saw them today, and it wasn't a reminder. You could tell that it had been ingrained in the moments that they had, at the times that they had there at Sandusky Rec. So I was just really touched. And my former teacher of 5th grade, Miss Jenny Ashburn, she wasn't upstairs when I went to the literacy part. But what I saw there was children that weren't forced to feel like they were forced to be in a learning environment, but wanted to be. And so to see them working on educational pieces, it wasn't just something that was handmade. It was Lakeshore. It was the good educational distribution of learning toys, the companies. And it was just like, oh my gosh, I could see this whole learning center thing. And I could see the whole rec thing. I see how it meshed together. What I did miss was, again, moms and dads, you know, interacting with their kids. And I know there's a need for us to come together. I always say around the dinner table, around a worship table. But also there should be some recreation that we could do with our kids and our grandparents, and coming together with our kids under one roof. And that's what I want to see. I want to see parents volunteering in our schools, and I want to see parents together with our children and recreation as well. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Any others?
Chairman,
Yes.
committee, this is Steve Pajali, 1033 Wayne Street. I'm here as a private citizen and a commissioner, but I'm not speaking for the commission. I just want to throw out the possibility. I know Sharon probably wouldn't agree with me, but I'm wondering if there's a way where we could maybe continue to function at the Mills School facility. It seems to be functioning well as a community center now. You have a gym, you have classrooms, you want a kitchen. If you want to put that stuff in a new rec center, that's going to be very expensive, and it would allow those other amenities for recreation to go into the rec center. I think it would stretch the money. You would also be able to find a way to reuse that building, and that's going to be a difficult proposition. You've got a golf course across the street. You could teach golf. You could sled in the winter. And I'm not saying that it would preclude those using the Mill Street facility from coming over to the rec center. I think that could be provided given certain hours. The city could even provide transportation for them to come over there. I just think it's a good fit, and we always talk about working with the schools. Maybe we could work with the schools and figure out a way to lease that building for a long term. Just something to think about. If it's a bad idea, that's fine. You won't offend me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Micali. All right. I think that might be it for public comment.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
may I comment on one of the comments?
Of course.
Okay. There was a comment made that a rec center is important to development, that places like Cedar Point or other places may consider it important to development. And the reason for that it is important, is that whether you're want to attract a new family to move to a city, or a company to locate here, or an employee to work for a company here, they want to know what the assets are of the city. And rec center often comes up as one of those. And so that's why it's important as you try to continue to improve and grow your community.
Thank you for that comment. Are there any other comments that you would like to respond to? Any of the other members? No? I'll take a stab at a couple. Just to respond to the gentleman that had asked about basically the recommendations. Our next meeting on July 2nd, Tuesday, July 2nd, we will indeed begin to compile and offer our recommendations to the City Commission at that meeting. And at today's meeting, we will also share with some of our, with the public, our basically just our assessment from our visit at the rec center last week. So without further ado, I think we will begin to get into that for the individuals that either had visited, on their own time, or just would like to simply offer their feedback from what we did observe. That would be great, and we'll try to get through. Please be mindful of us, getting through all the agenda items, because I think they are important, especially as we go into our final meeting. So, who would like to get us started off?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So I did visit the Fremont Rec Center, and I thought that it was a very nice facility for people who wanted to focus on athletics. Looking at just the square footage, that would be similar to what the city of Sandusky would have. It appeared to me that it was tailored more to the people who are athletically inclined, and I did ask about, could you put a faux floor over the existing floor so that space could serve dual purposes. That is possible, but it's very labor intensive, and it would need more storage than what the current facility plans are. And I do realize that the plans were just a vision. It doesn't mean that that's what we're going to get. So in looking at if we're married to that footprint, I didn't see a way where the programming could be including mentoring and character development, the type of programming that is for children that is currently taking place at Mill School, unless there is a way that they could find a method of doing dual purpose for the floors. But then again, that's going to require some planning on behalf of staff to figure out where are we going to store the faux floors so that it could be an all-inclusive facility. But that was the one thing that disappointed me, is I didn't see where it would include the type of work that's been accomplished in working with the children through the city rec department today.
Very good. Any others?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I also had the opportunity to tour the Fremont facility, and I think it is a true recreation center, which is, I think one of the dilemmas that we've had is what's the difference between a community center and a recreation center, and I think we have a tendency to try to merge those two things together during some of these discussions. And so when I look at that, it's a true recreation center. The facility that I saw in Fremont, I felt the walking track, I do agree that there is sort of a duplicate walking track in the area. However, it was clear that it was one of the most important things during the survey that was conducted, that it is still something that people want. I thought the layout of the walking track, the courts, which I do think can be multi-purpose. I think storage is not that hard to figure out. It's typically inexpensive to add storage. And I thought the general layout with the upstairs and the downstairs was good. I do believe the Fremont facility, what it lacked was separate spaces for additional programming for kids, for summer programming. And they had one area that addressed that, but I don't think they had enough space to address that. So I think in the first draft of what the floor plan could look like for the Sandusky Recreation Center, we had more rooms in there where we could layer in programming for kids, teens, and seniors based on sort of a rotating schedule. And I thought that was a benefit of the floor plan that was first created for the Sandusky Rec Center. I think it is a good model as it relates to the courts, the walking track, and the weight facilities. I think the Sandusky Rec Center should have more room for programming so we can address programming for kids, teens, and adults. And that is in the current plan. But I thought it helped me to see that facility because it helped bring to life what the Sandusky facility could be. I also think some outdoor space is really important, whether that's covered seating just for families to gather and spend time together in sort of a grassy area or whatever that ends up being as we finalize the programming, I think is time and money well spent to just find places where people can gather, maybe not inside but outside. And those were my overall observations. I thought it was a good trip. I think they run a very nice facility. I think they have a lot of technology in place that we could probably learn from as it relates to security and safety and all those other things. So that's my feedback.
Very good, thank you. And let's see, Mr. Dyer.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I also got a chance to go down to Fremont Rec last week, and I second what Ms. Boldman said for the walking track. Yeah, there is the walking track out by Sports Force, but just looking at our community health assessment, transportation is a big problem in the city and in this county, and having a accessible walking track right in the town, I think would be really important, and I think the feedback says that. So, and it's not a very costly thing. I will say that the Fremont Rec didn't really have as much space for those program rooms that we would like to see out of our rec center, just because we do want to have that programming for the children for that. And the way that the technology has evolved in today's day and age, we can split basketball courts in half, we can put dividers, we can set things up fairly quickly. So it'll be open to the public as well as having those after-school programs, having those summer programs that, so everyone can utilize it at the same time. Just because something's there at one time doesn't mean that the whole building is closed off. So there's definitely some good takeaways just from the size aspect, the walking track, kind of seeing something in person gives you a better realization than just seeing it on a 2D piece of paper and some colored boxes. I think it helps when you can see it in person, and I think there's a lot of good to take away from that trip down there. But it also helps us kind of show what we need to add, what we need to maybe even take away. So, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Dyer.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I wanted to make one other comment. One of the things that the Fremont facility had, if they had a basketball tournament, volleyball tournament, whatever programming, if that's the direction we head for the Sandusky Recreation Center, is they did have some small food offerings, kind of snack bar concession area offerings, and I thought it was a good idea because it could be another revenue stream to help offset cost.
Yes, thank you. Very good. That was actually going to be, one of my takeaways. I thought that was just, a really good option. And mind you, this concession area was very small, to say the least. So, space, I don't think would be a problem at all. I mean, in fact, there's probably a considerable amount of closets at a home that this place is probably bigger than. So I think that would be great, just to, welcome in and, offer that collaborative, opportunity just with, other events. I think they had mentioned that they host like boxing events. That was one that stood out to me that I thought was pretty cool and unique. And in addition to that, I did notice on some of the templates outside of the rooms, they were, marked community room, right? And so there was one off of the 24-hour entrance that it appeared as if they had used for some sort of kids programming or youth programming. But then I actually noticed that one of the other community rooms, rather than having the free weights on the second floor, it was actually on the first floor. And then upstairs was basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, staff, but basically your treadmills and a lot of, things of that nature. So I thought that was pretty fitting. Are there any other comments? Any other things that might come to mind?
Mr. Chairman, one other thing, I did look at some of the collateral in the handouts they had there, and they did have, during the summer, some nice kids programming and camps, which I thought was very value add in that community and probably in ours as well. But they did have summer programming at that Fremont Center, and I believe holiday breaks as well.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I also wanted to add, just based off of Fremont's, things that they have going on, those camps, those tournaments, AAU tournaments, those are going to be really important to have the ability to host those, because that brings in a whole lot of money. And when we're planning, we've got to make sure we have enough seating for all those people. And then also, looking at the site that the city selected, there's a lot of green space on that site. I think that's really helpful for when you want to host a football or soccer camp. It's pretty cheap to paint some lines on the grass, and I think the city's going to be furnishing that whole site. I think you have to redo some of the ground, but when you do, you can paint lines, and you can have football camps, you can have flag football tournaments, maybe even adult flag football tournaments. Those things can bring in a lot of money, and it's pretty cheap and cheap. So I think that's really important too, that there is that grassy area and there is also room for expansion, hopefully in the future as well.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, and I just want to add, I was not able to make the trip, so I focused in on the annual report a little bit, and, concessions was mentioned. They made $28,000 on concessions last year. So, that's obviously a revenue source. Someone mentioned about rentals of community rooms. they made $50,000 on renting their community space last year. So they're making money on those things. They do have a membership schedule, and it seems pretty fair. I mean, $15 a month for an adult, $5 a month for a senior, $7 a month for a student, $30 a month for a family. So now granted, they're running at a deficit. They're not making enough money to cover their expenses. Looks like they're getting some, $360,000 transfer a year. It must be coming from a foundation or some kind of supplemental. General fund.
Mm-hmm.
So even with those sources of revenue, they're still not making enough money to pay wages and maintain the facility. So, when we get to talking about what type of programs we want to offer, we got to have that long-term vision. Can we support what we want? So, to the person who said, we got a template here, we got the the program, we're not recreating the wheel. We got to know what our budget is to be able to sustain this facility. So.
Very good. One thing, and this is, this kind of just comes down to the different options, but I think one of my surprising takeaways was the fact that they have offered 24-hour access. And I think they mentioned that it's pretty much been that way for 15, 20 years, which was, again, just very surprising, because I know the first thing that comes to probably many of our minds is the liability factor, and and how do you keep people into a central location, and what things do you offer after a certain time. And again, to their recollection, I mean, issues have pretty much been non-existent. So I thought that was really interesting, and maybe something that we could consider as we move into next week. So.
And I think a big key factor for that 24 access was the amount of security cameras. The guy that brought us around last week, he was very quick to point out a couple of times how important those cameras have been, and I think that will help deter some of the shenanigans that may happen late at night when there's cameras in every single corner and someone's watching them. So that definitely could be an option for that 24-hour access. Maybe someone's working a second or third shift and they still want to be able to use the rec center. I think that's important to keep that accessible for them as well.
Very good. All right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I had a couple other comments. One is, Rich, I think you mentioned that the current Fremont Center is subsidized to some extent, and right now, is our recreation department subsidized in the budget? I don't know if it is or not. And will that continue to be a funding going forward, the way the rec center is funded? Secondly, when we're talking about the programming, first of all, thank you we had requested a few weeks ago kind of a census of all the programs in Sandusky, and that was provided, not including our own rec department. There are over 200 programs offered in Sandusky, which is amazing. We are so fortunate to have that many. So we'll have to be careful, where we're going to fit into that already exhaustive list of programs and which ones we should be doing so we're not overlapping. The other thing to think about as we're thinking about programming is programming will drive the facility design, but it would be great that we could have a facility that would allow us the option to expand in the future with the possibility of partnerships and collaborations, maybe sponsorships through a major corporation, a third-party partnership that could come in so that we could grow into the vision that we have for this, that hopefully what we recommend and what is built may be just the beginning. But we're going to have to work at getting those sponsorships and partners to do that. and I hope that will happen.
Yes.
So, Mr. Chair?
Uh-huh.
So it seems to me that we are, well, I'll speak for myself. I am a layman when it comes to recreation advising. I know enough about recreation programming to be dangerous, but I do know what I've been told by the citizens who are age 60 and older what they want. And I wonder if it is appropriate for this committee to look at what is it that we are not willing to sacrifice. That would be an easier question to answer. What is it that we are not willing to sacrifice? And realizing the costs of what we want, do you want a facility that is able to sustain itself, or is it going to be a facility that is going to be perpetually subsidized through the general fund like Fremont is? I think I think the funding of it is a staff question. I don't think that the people sitting around this table are really in a position to answer that question. But I believe that we need to tell the staff, as representatives of citizens who want to use a recreation center or community center, I think that that's our charge, is to represent the citizens and saying, this is what we're not willing to sacrifice for the new recreation center. And then staff, you're going to be saddled with the responsibility of figuring out how to make that happen, whether that's getting corporate sponsors, getting foundation grants, getting the city commission to agree that this much money will publicly subsidize the operations of the recreation center or community center, whatever you want to call it. And I did look up the definitions of both, and we're splitting hairs when we're trying to figure out what's a recreation center and what's a community center. So I think that would be my recommendation, is that for the sake of getting something started that could go to commission, what is it that we're not willing to give up and want to see take place at the new rec facility?
Thank you. Any other comments? And I think that might be a pretty decent segue into what I wanted to just take just a few minutes, and perhaps, Sue, you might be the most knowledgeable in this regard. But, we have, and rightfully so, we've talked a lot about, the children and the youth and the programming surrounding those, particular age groups and demographics. But, regardless of how long we discuss it tonight, I can't stress enough how thoughtful and considerate I want to be of the different groups, right? Whether that not just be seniors, but that we do not forget about, even if we have to reach out just to our own personal connections and resources. I want to be inclusive of those who may have disabilities, whether that be physical and or mental. So please, keep that in mind. And if anyone just has some things that they'd like to share, even in this moment, I'd be more than happy just to hear some of those suggestions, just to kind of get our wheels turning on some possibilities. So. Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry.
This is.
I know. Can I at the end? Can I add?
If you could be brief, I'll allow you to come up to the podium. Just yes, please. But please be brief.
I will be very brief. If you're looking for community resource, like community people to go to, Diane Corso at the Erie County Board of Developmental Disability. She is a very good resource. She brought in the mobile bathroom at the Bike Week. So looking at things like bathroom accessibility and having an adult changing table But if you could, Diane Corso would be a very great resource to have on inclusivity and making facility accessible.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
a couple weeks back, I offered to talk to my team at the hospital, the therapists who deal with both adult and pediatrics, and they gave me a very comprehensive list that I will put into a document to submit, but adult changing table, size changing areas, playground accessibility, adult swings varied size. I've had a whole list of what these trained professionals have recommended to meet that population, so I will put that in a document for this committee.
Very good. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that, and thanks for sharing, Mr. Meredith.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So as programming is planned for this new recreation center and representing older adults who would like to use the rec center, intergenerational programming, so that in some cases, programming where people 60 and older are doing things within their own age group, but also programming that would include older adults to be with people who are younger. And I do want to emphasize again that to see the rec center provide programming for children so that they are respectful of older people is another thing that's of interest to seeing that this rec center serves the community. And again, I'll just state again that the warm water exercise pool was like #1 with the folks that talked to me. And then second, the walking track. And I did fail to inquire why the walking track that's available at Sports Force is not enough to serve their needs.
No, I'm sorry.
So, yeah, so I'm just sharing that information, but that in terms of representing the interests of people 60 and older, that is what they would like to see in the new facility.
Very good. You know, to go off of one of your comments, I think that's what Ms. Ruffin had actually was maybe kind of hinting at, was that intergenerational programming, and/or that's just a little bit about what she gets, even in visiting the, Mill School and their rec programs. As we know, Ms. Tondra, when you talk about, just being respectful of elders, we know that she runs a pretty tight ship over there. And so what are your thoughts on that, Ms. Tondra? Just in regards to how important, programming like that might be?
It's very important. It is probably one of the foundational pieces to my being on this planet today, having elders in my family growing up. My great-grandmother was born in 1911. I had her until 2005. So great-grandmother, grandmother, mother, and that is those pieces of a foundation that we want to incorporate. Me and Sue actually have worked together with intergenerational programming, tagging connecting a young person with a senior, and it was refreshing to watch and refreshing to see, because when I was coming up there, we had grandmas and great-grandmas that we looked up to and sat down, and my grandmother's hands is the book that I always try to share with people to read that book or get it on audio, because it says a lot. But again, seniors and kids, they keep each other alive. Like seniors working with kids, it gives them that thing that they, instead of just being isolated and being with your particular population, you got these young people full of energy, and it keeps you active. That's how I stay active. Like, I need these kids, right? I would be somebody different, but I think it's very important that, the whole gamut, from young people through young adults, adolescents, teens, young adults, and our seniors. It's an important piece, and we need to incorporate that into what we do in that building. Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Make a quick comment about that. I think that is the advantage of some of the flexible space that we need to have for programming, and that is how we can achieve that type of goal, for sure.
Very good. Any other comments before we touch on the next item? So I'll kick off this next item on our agenda. That is, where, we'd like to discuss a little bit just about, some of the different membership models and/or discounts. One of the things that actually stood out to me that I didn't quite, or I didn't initially consider that Fremont actually offers. They do. They have the student discounts. So whether that be, the youth in high school and/or college. There was also one that I began to think about, and heck, this could even, I don't even know if we could essentially get that of like a GSP or the chamber involved. But getting local corporations and local businesses involved to offer their employees discounts, again, just to hopefully kind of drive that, that membership, I thought would be, an excellent idea. So by all means, I'm open to, offering discounts like that in the event, that we come up with some form of a membership model. And I'd just like to hear the rest of the advisory members' just thoughts on that, and/or just, kind of just spitball some ideas about what other opportunities may, exist to drive membership.
Mr. Chair.
I think we had a tie. Go ahead.
So I'm not sure the process or the procedure, but if I'm not mistaken, the membership talks were tabled. I made that motion and we voted to table the membership discussion. So is there something that we need to do to start talking about memberships to bring it back onto the table?
Yeah, actually, thank you for that. We probably would have to make a motion to untable. Yes.
I don't know.
Have to have a motion on the table in a second.
Okay.
I'll move to untable.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Discussion?
Yes, a discussion?
So are we discussing the membership fee because we're trying to figure out how we're going to keep this rec center afloat? Is that the purpose of the membership income?
So the thing is, so for this discussion, I would like to kind of keep it very, very surface level. And what I mean by that is sort of just your take on perhaps the membership model that the Fremont Rec Center and/or any other rec center that you have observed. And, again, just what your take is from that. So very surface level without, we're not going to, we only have a few minutes. We're not going to talk about fees and things like that. Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yes. But thank you for that clarification.
Okay.
So I believe I did get a first and a second on that motion. Okay. Well, with that being said, that has been untabled. So.
So.
You'd have a vote.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Thank you.
All in favor? Is that, you have to have a vote?
You have the roll call vote.
Roll call. Yeah.
Leah Lexicos,
Yes.
Carrie Boldman,
Yes.
Sue Daugherty,
Yes.
Elliot Dyer,
Yes.
Rich Finneran,
Yes.
Tondra Frisbee,
Yes.
Blake Harris,
Yes.
Drew Meredith,
Yes.
John Orzak,
Yes.
Richard Kuntz.
I thought I was just a liaison.
Yeah.
This would be the first time that I voted.
Okay.
But if I did vote, I'd vote no.
Thank you for that, Ms. Tondra.
Okay, and now, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So I want to first thank Ms. Sharon. I don't personally know you, but thank you for your comment, Ms. Margaret and Mr. Talib, who kids have been part of the Sandusky Rec programming since they were eligible. That's 5 years old, and they're they're double digits now. So thank you, and for Ms. Pat and Mr. Bajali, who's not here. I just want to be clear as far as membership goes, that the membership model might work perfectly fine for gym memberships at the Rec Community Center for those that want to use the treadmills or lift weights or even walking tracks, whatever that athletic type of deal is. But membership models does not work for the Rec Center current program, youth programming at Mills. So we need to be clear on that. It does not, membership model does not work for what is currently happening at Mills School. Any membership model that this committee recommends or that the city adopts should not apply to the out-of-school programming, which is out of school, meaning after-school programming, spring break, winter break, summer break, that we already have and currently have and is covered by the current city budget. It's already covered. These programs should remain available to families at no cost or under the current fee structures we have, because there are a few programs that we do have a small fee that we charge. And again, that's where I've been from the beginning. That's been my agenda, is to membership model for whatever needs to be on that side, if you want to put it on the side, but as a overall out-of-school program, what we currently do at Mills, and that's every program that we currently do, and we have those programming there that is at no cost. It should stay like that, and that's my recommendation, and I would hope that we could all come on one accord with that.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, go ahead.
To second Tandra there, I think it's really important to give those kids that access to that. And I think if we do start charging, we're taking away services before we've even built any to replace them. So I think charging for those after-school programs for all those kids, I mean, if there's families that can't afford that, then they're just going to be wandering the streets and causing problems. And like some people came here to say, and I've seen it personally too, those kids are learning. They're learning rules. They're learning responsibilities. They're learning how to face the actions of their consequences. And if we take that away from them, then you're just going to cause more problems than a couple. Then the cost of, it's going to cost us more long-term, maybe not in the rec program, but the city as a whole, and crime possibly for the future if you take away those opportunities for those kids. So I think, to second Tandra, I think that after-school programming, out-of-school programming is really important and really essential for their health, for their growth.
Very good.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
You mentioned corporate memberships, that type of thing. I think we should explore those. You know, I think we need to make a recommendation, maybe not what the exact price is, but, you know, our focus should be on, you know, the family members, individual, college, seniors, and of course, keeping programs free that have been free. But I think exploring the corporate memberships or some type of group is a great way to build your business and get some volume. You know, I think people want to see a rec center that's busy and being used, and you need it for the revenues. So it's a great way to explore additional revenues and additional volume.
Very good. And just a couple of things. So, yeah, I certainly would echo what Ms. Tandra and what Mr. Dyer mentioned. And I think just basically in layman's terms, you know, Ms. Tandra, you're saying, hey, keep the main thing, you know, yeah, perhaps apply a membership to the rec center, but leave the programming as alone, leave it as it is, allow that programming to function as is, and whether that be some small programming fee and or something that's already currently baked into the budget to provide a free service, you know, to our youth, and then that, you know, leave that as is. One thing I did forget to mention, again, something that I didn't think of at first thought, but they do offer seasonal memberships, which I was like, oh, it's actually pretty good because, you know, especially, you know, in a place like Sandusky, Ohio. You know, sometimes the change in seasons can be like a box of chocolates, and you don't know what you're going to get on any given day. But you know, in the summer, we usually have the ability to get out more, right? So then maybe some of our recreation is able to take place outdoors, you know, with the bike trail, et cetera. But then in the winter, you know, we become, you know, a little bit, we're kind of stuck at home, right? So I think that's just, just another thing to, that could be advantageous for us to offer, just that flexibility. Any other thoughts, comments?
Mr. Chair, I have a comment.
Yes.
I'm struggling because I think it's really, I think some sort of a membership approach is going to be required. We're going to have to look at some sort of membership model. What we charge for and don't charge for, to be candid, I think is premature given the fact that we haven't even decided what the facility itself is going to house and what's going to go there and what's not going to go there. So as I think about moving forward, we're going to have some type of membership model for sure. What is included or excluded, I think it's premature until we define what the space is going to be, what recreation activities we're going to provide, and how much flex space to add programming in. And so my comment is, I believe we need a membership model. We're going to have that to cover operating costs. But to talk about what's free or not free right now, I think is really premature because we haven't even defined what the facility itself is going to house. So that's my comment.
Very good.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Ms. Carrie
Yes, sir.
Bowman took the words right out of my mouth. When I said I would vote no, she actually explained why I would vote no. And I believe it's premature to have this conversation, and we spent a lot of time on this conversation before, and it bogged us down. So that's why I would have said that. The other issue is that nobody has talked about is that for those almost 50% of the people who own houses who said no, that they didn't want it, actually they'll be paying twice, won't they? Versus the people who live in apartments and what have you. They might pass on the cost to those folks who live in apartments, but the folks who live in apartments will not be paying the cost of those homeowners who pay literally twice as much. So I haven't heard that in the conversation. So you have to think about what that means for somebody who owns their home. They're already being charged based on the taxes they pay, and then they'll be charged again on whatever the membership fee is. If that's not going to be a part of the conversation, then you're going to have folks saying, well, wait a minute, am I not already paying for this? And then you're going to have others who didn't pay anything, especially if they didn't increase the price of their rent and they're passing on the cost. Nobody's having that conversation. I'm having the conversation because I know many homeowners, and I'm willing to pay my part, right? And I'd pay a little more. But the bottom line is we can't forget about those citizens and those residents. That's my take.
All right. Thank you. May we get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Again, I'll send everyone something out the next couple of days.